Well, let's move on to the last topic to wrap this up.
Awesome.
Body positivity. Well, this is the most controversial one. This could be a potential landmine, so this might not even go online. We'll see. So the final topic that we have up for discussion to wrap this up is, of course, you guys are both athletic trainers. I'm sure you're both aware that there's a huge difference between men and women. That's why we separate the sports. Mm-hmm. And so now in the era that we live in, we have transgender athletes, and this is becoming a hot topic within the last few years, actually, of people who are transgender who want to participate in the sport that they transition into. So what do you guys think about that? What's your overall feeling as athletic trainers?
So I may be controversial, I guess, with this, but I am a firm believer in you compete in the sport that you are genetically born as until there is a chemical change. So if you say you're male transitioning to female and you want to now compete in the female division, well, you can't until there are medical treatments being made. Once that happens, then yes, go ahead. Prior to that, you should be competing in the sex that you were born at.
So is that the chromosomal level that you're talking about there?
More necessarily the hormones, yeah, and everything like that.
So if you have a certain amount of estrogen inside your body, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because let's say even like if you're male going to female and you're just identifying as a female, but you're not going to take any steps towards it, there is a proven fact that males can produce more muscle mass and everything and be stronger. And if you're doing a sport, let's say, like wrestling, and hey, giving the shout out to, I forgot her name, in North Carolina, who won state championships in the boys league. She had the opportunity to go to the girls league, but she stayed with the men's, and she actually won North Carolina state champion. I give a
great props. Yeah.
Great job. But on the other hand, if you're now saying I identify as a female and you want to go wrestle in the female division, but don't take any of the steps, don't take any estrogen or any, that has to be unfair. And there has to be something to, monitor that. And I get it. That's probably an issue with some people that I'm saying this, but that's just how I feel. And I don't know. I guess.
So you're saying it should be some kind of test that should be administered, whether someone should be able to compete, and you're saying that it should be based on hormonal levels.
Yeah, I like not even hormonal levels. Just if they are going to the hospital and getting treatment to transition. Once that transition starts, then you could compete in, I feel like, the gender you want to be. But until that, if you're just saying I identify and you're not taking any of the steps, then that's where I have that issue.
What do you think, Ibby?
I know. I
no comment.
I think I just started a little war right now.
No. You're definitely not going to start a war because much like the steroid topic that we had earlier, honestly, this is kind of in that same realm right there in the sense where we're trying to find out what's the fairest thing for all competitors. Like I said, when it comes to sport, there's a gentleman's agreement in all sports. Yeah. These are the rules. These are what we obey by. And this way, everybody has a fair shot at winning.
Yeah.
Hey, you might be stronger that day. You might be better than me that day. But at least both of us, we play by the rules.
Yeah.
Right here. That's what we're going to go by. And with this transgender issue that we've been seeing for the past 4 years, I want to say, at the very least, right now, it's a very, very interesting issue because I don't know if there is a right answer or a politically correct answer that you can actually say in this moment. Because if I'm playing devil's advocate either way, if I said that, if I'm a man and I want to identify as a woman and go into a women's division and beat everybody, is that fair?
Yeah.
But is it also fair to me as a competitor if I want to identify as a woman but you're making me be in a men's division? So there's no right answer here, really, just yet, unfortunately. And I have to agree with Jeff. There should be a standard that we have to go by, and unfortunately, that might mean more scientific testing at this point, and saying, hey, if you're taking these steps, like Jeff said, and you're giving yourself more testosterone or you're giving yourself more estrogen, and you are making that transition right now, and you're at this level right here, perhaps you can actually compete with people that you identify with. I think that might be a fair way to do it. It could be. I don't know. Because there is the whole fact that I don't know if we can change chromosomes in the body.
We can't at the moment. There's no way. If you're XY, you're XY. You're XX, you're XX.
Right. So
I mean, there's Klein filters, which is like 0.01% that happens.
I at a strictly biological level, and I'm not talking about how people identify themselves as, because that I truly do believe that you should look at yourself any way that you want to look at yourself. That's who you are. How you identify with yourself is how you identify yourself. I am a martial artist. I am going to be an athletic trainer. I am an American who is also born in Colombia. I'm a Muslim. I identify myself in these ways. If you try to tell me differently, oh, fuck you. So I completely understand that aspect of it. However, at a biological level, though, you are going to be a woman. You are going to be a man. So I don't know what the right answer is in terms of where we are scientifically wise. In the sense of fairness for athletes right now. It's like you said, it's a very hot topic right now, and I don't know of the right answer for fairness on both sides. So that's where I'm at right now in this. I mean,
just as that, I mean, even if you Jeff, you talked about testing. Somebody who doesn't want transgender athletes to compete in the sex that they transition into, somebody, a counter argument would be that you look at somebody who's transitioning from man to woman. If they went through the teenage years as a man and then transition in their 20s, the advantages that they have gained, the muscle mass that they built while they're teenagers, the bone mass that you accrue because of your testosterone. And not even that. I mean, we know for a fact that men, for example, reaction times for men are generally much higher than women's, and these are skills that yes, absolutely, that is a fact.
My girlfriend might be quicker than me. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, that's a different story. But just like, for example, men generally men develop more muscle mass, and so those gains that you have as a teenager because of that heightened testosterone, it's gonna carry over. And so no matter what you do when you're 20s, if you transition, you're always going to carry those over. And actually who it hurts the most are actually women. Yeah. And especially in combat sports where you have, people who transition, men who transitioned as women. And you look at all of them, they are destroying women in the cage.
And that is not to say, honestly, that women cannot compete with men in that arena at all. If it wasn't for women, I would not be the man I am today right now. I had 3 big sisters in my dojo that whooped my ass from about 10 years old to 16 years old. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't learn how to fight right now. So I tip my hat to women competing all the time. I think that at any given day, a girl could probably beat me or beat anybody on the world.
I don't know. But I think the science would bear out that.
Would you, like...
From a statistical standpoint, you could probably beat up 98% of women. Well, from a statistical perspective, 99. I would even venture to say 99 because you're a professional fighter. But you're not just a Joe Schmo.
They'd cut me in my sleep. They'd find a way to get back at me no matter what.
The fight doesn't begin in the ring. Yeah,
it doesn't end there. No. But in that same build, that's the reason why we have weight classes as well. Yeah. For fairness. For everybody involved. Now, a heavyweight fighter will most likely beat a flyweight fighter in a fight. It's just the way that it is. If there's no rules, no hold bars or anything like that, here's a 250-pound man, here's a 120-pound man. what is that 120-pound man going to do to that 250-pound man?
Right.
Not really much.
If both of them have the same exact knowledge base, mind you, throughout everything,
and
they
if
go at
both techniques are equal, both skills are equal.
So I completely understand.
Stronger guy's going to win every time.
Yeah.
I completely agree with the fact that with what you were saying, that if a man does enter into a woman's division and they have this much more muscle mass on their body compared to the women in there, that might be an advantage for them.
Going back to the PED subject.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah.
So it's one of those things, but I don't want to knock anybody as well in this conversation.
I don't think it's knocking. Like, I don't think you should look at it as like, oh, women are weaker than men. I think you're looking at, like, statistically, you're looking at the facts. It's like, no, men are bigger. We are physically stronger, which doesn't speak about the mental strength. But you know, I mean, look at the women's soccer. I mean, women's soccer, to train for the World Cup, they work out with high school kids, and I think they worked out with a team from Texas, I think, and these are high school boys, and they beat the women's soccer team.
Yeah,
and this is the World Cup. I mean, the USA soccer team is the best in the world. You look at tennis players, right? I remember Serena Williams a few years ago when they first started. They made a bet. They said, "Oh, we can beat any man within the top 400." And a guy, I forgot his name, a tennis player, actually took them up on their offer, and he played with them with no cameras, and he beat them handedly. Wow. And again, like, it's not a knock on women. I think it's just, we're just looking at the facts. Like, this is biologically, this is who we are.
Scientific.
And so I think that is the issue that we come to.
I guess I look at fighting a little bit differently too, where if any given day, anybody can beat anybody depending on what's happening. Yeah. So I might just look at fighting just a little bit differently as well.
Like I said before, football was my first love. I think of a football mindset. I grew up, and on my high school team, we did have a female athlete, and she didn't get much time in because there was also that stigma out there, which, it happens. But I could tell you right now, there was times, the few times she did get on the field and she let her anger out and she, did what she needed to do. She made some great plays. But the majority of the time when she was out there, she did the right stuff. She was, taught the same way as everyone else was, but there was that physical limitation.
Yeah,
and nothing against her. She,
no, absolutely not. It's she
have to
look at the facts.
But there was times I would get into a drill and she'd be on the other side, and my coach would be like, "All right, stop," and move her, just more of a protection thing because. And I probably would have, held back, but I wouldn't want to hold back because if you're, if you sign your name and say, "I'm going to do this sport," you gotta be aware of all the outcomes. And
yeah, I mean, we even look at, I think when the Marines started accepting women, they lowered the standards, and it's just like, we have to acknowledge that men and women are different. One isn't better than the other, but we have to acknowledge like the differences. And I think, if women and men are exactly the same when it comes to physical strength, why not? Why did we separate the sexes then? What's the point of having, separating the sports, right? Yeah. And the reason we separate is because we do acknowledge that there is a difference. Yeah. Like women in sports probably would not be in sports if we just put all the genders together.
If you really look at that in the sports thing, look at lacrosse. And anybody that is a lacrosse fan they will agree to this. Men's lacrosse and women's lacrosse are two totally different sports, but they're named lacrosse. Men's lacrosse is very physical. You see them; they're in pads. They have the chest guard, the elbow guards. They're in a full helmet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the game is much more physical. Where in female lacrosse, it's just the goggles, gloves, and cleats.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, they modified the game. They changed the game a little bit for more speed and agility and not as much physicality.
Thing. Well, I believe it's the same thing for female hockey as well, right? Because they're not allowed to necessarily check each other.
No, they go full out.
They do?
Yeah, that is there. It's not as brutal as see some of the checks in men's hockey. Mm-hmm. But no, that is, I've worked with, a women's hockey team. I've worked with a women's professional football team. And I can tell you right now, those women are phenomenal football players. But, if Ray Lewis decided to show up on that football field, I don't think anybody's going to stop that guy.
And that's not knocking women. I don't think we should do that. It's just stating the reality that we live in. That this is the biological advantage that men are born with.
Yeah. The only sport I've seen that is very similar, men and women, was rugby actually. And it's kind of crazy to think, but I've had the opportunity to work with both, and they're both very violent. But you could tell that with men's rugby, they played up the hitting, they played up the physicality a little bit more because they use that as an advantage. Where in the female, they played up the speed and agility. Because I'm telling you right now, some of these girls that I would watch playing rugby, they were like lightning, and they had the footwork of ballerinas, but the physicality. And I'm like, wow, how do you balance that? Where the men, the footwork may not been there, but they're just like, all right, I'm just going to drop my shoulder and run through you and see what happens. So as much as like we've been saying is not to knock, it's not knocking. It's just showing the different
physicality.
Yeah, physicality and the different attributes that have.
Yeah.
Most female athletes I've dealt with, to be honest, especially at the high school level, I've said this to many strength coaches and many coaches and everything. A female athlete will pick up a skill much faster, but a male athlete can not perfect it, but grow on that skill a little bit faster. It's a weird thing, but they're a female athlete's athleticism and agility and footwork, in my opinion, is sometimes better.
There's also a difference due to body types as well.
Yeah.
One of my good friends, Tristan Bunny, he's out in California right now coaching a female wrestling team at, I believe the college is Menlo College out there. And we were just talking about it over break that he noticed a big difference between training women and training men. With women, there's a lot more, at least when it comes to wrestling, they use their legs a lot more. They're not going to use those big slams that you see with men necessarily and trying to lift people up and not using that
because the upper body is not as...
exactly. So they're going to drive a lot more through their legs and move their legs a lot more instead of the arms there. Yeah. So I found that very interesting that there was just even a difference just in how they would actually perform the sport. So you won't see those double legs from female wrestlers that you would see from male wrestlers at that time. So there's a big difference to that. But another side piece to that as well is that with female wrestlers, because of the fact that they are female, sometimes they don't get the same training that males do on the same counterpart.
Oh, yeah, the funding is not there. I mean, women's soccer.
No, not necessarily even the funding. It's the fact the teams.
So, right.
Say that you're the only female wrestler inside of your high school wrestling team.
You can't
wrestled
in every
all
meet.
4 years.
Yeah. No.
You wrestled all 4 years for this team, but the coach just didn't take the time period to actually coach you. He'd coach everybody else during that time period. So you don't get the same level of training. So by the time that you get to college and you're on a full female team, you need to be basically taught up from there to be on this.
Your growth as an athlete is just kind of stunted because you're not giving us this attention.
So I think we're going to, hopefully in the next few years, we're going to also see a much greater education for a lot of these female athletes moving forward as well, to see them compete a little bit more alongside the males. And I'm not saying that they're going to be competing the men during that time period as well, but what I'm saying is that I hope to see more education for these athletes, because as we discussed earlier, education of techniques for sports is also going to lead to better outcomes and hopefully less injuries in the long run for a lot of these athletes as well.
And to go off that, I think the acceptance of females and males playing any kind of sport that they desire, and to go back to the trend, just allowing kids to play a sport and play the sport that they feel like they want to, because there's a stigma out there like, oh, a boy shouldn't do ballet, or a girl shouldn't play football or whatever. That stigma is slowly fleeting, which is a great thing for sports and for athletics and just for everything positive that sports and everything give to people. There's the cookie cutter sports that a person should play, I feel like isn't there anymore, which is great. You're seeing levels of athleticism come up from kids that would normally never play a sport or never do a certain activity because that stigma of, oh, you're a guy, so you should play this.
I think a lot of families are definitely learning that you can't specialize your kid anymore.
Oh, that's
yeah, it's true. It's a big topic, but I think that a problem at least 5 years ago, and it still is somewhat of a problem now, is the fact that if you specialize a kid at least in athletics, then there's more likely going to be an injury, an overuse injury for that athlete because they just keep doing the same thing and doing the same thing and doing the same and favoring it in one way, shape, or form. If you allow this young athlete to learn more things, do ballet, like he was saying, do other sports.
It's good for the mental state.
It's great for the mental state. It's great for the body. They get to learn a heck of a lot more and learn more about themselves throughout this process
learn
as
a
well.
Different group of people and different cultures. And
figure out what they love too.
Yeah.
So if you are a parent and you are listening right now, make sure that your child is learning as much as they possibly can during their growth. So don't just specialize them in necessarily just one thing.
If you specialize, the chance of burnout is very real. I've seen it plenty of times with, the high school athletes of kids that, all they do is one sport. And then by the time they're a senior and you're like, oh, you're going to school to compete in this sport? No, I'm done. What do you mean?
They
you're
got burned
done?
out from the sport. Yeah.
And you're like, I never want to touch the sport. And you're 18 years old. Like, that's such a short time of your life.
Yeah.
As you guys know, like, everyone that thinks, oh, high school is best years of your life. I don't know. I've had better years after that.
Yeah.
But
you've just begun, my friend.
Yeah.
You've just begun.
And just for a kid to think something that they've done for so many years and truly found a passion for, all of a sudden just don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
In my mind, that's hard to watch.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter any gender of that or what you are. It's just hard to watch someone lose a passion.
I think we as a society, I definitely think we should encourage people, whatever they want to pursue, whatever they want to do. Like, just getting back to women's sports, for example, like wrestlers, like we actually have to have the girls need to actually want to be wrestlers.
Yeah.
And I think the issue, again, it goes back to biology. There's actually, I don't remember what Scandinavian country it was. I think it was like Sweden. Sweden, a very progressive country, very, non-sexist country. I think they did a study where they followed, it was a big group of people, and they wanted it to be 50%, that every field should be 50-50, it should be 50% women, 50% men. And they found that when you give people choice, when you let a little girl choose, like, what do you want to be? Do you want to wrestle or do you want to do ballet? Even if you tell them you can be whatever you want to be, they found that, the fields, for example, the differences actually became larger. Yeah. So what ended up happening is that nursing, for example, the people that went to nurses were still 90+% women. Yeah. And you take a look at some profession like engineering, they found that 90% of people that go to engineering are men. Yeah. And I think it's just, again, I think it goes back to our biology. Like, our minds are also wired differently. Absolutely. And so I agree with that. I don't necessarily know that, I think we should just let people be, let people choose. Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with like this idea freedom that, choice. Oh yeah, you should be a wrestler, like push women to be wrestlers so we can get more female wrestlers and so that they won't have this issue of being stunted in their professional growth. Like, I understand those concerns, but at the same time, I don't think we should be forcing certain genders to do something that they could not care less. They could care less about.
I don't think that forcing them. Yeah, I don't think that forcing them is the operative word for what we would want to happen. I think that we just, like Jeff just said, just have that opportunity. Yeah. If they want it, it's there.
Because New Jersey, I know, I always speak back to New Jersey because that's obviously where we are. That's what I work in. Right. That's, the culture I'm very accustomed to in the athletic world. Yeah. They do now, a lot of schools have a full female team. And they have,
it's growing, man.
It absolutely is.
It's growing.
So the state champion in New Jersey is in Atlantic City. They do the female state championship, a couple days before the male state champion. Yeah. And to be honest, you're getting almost similar turnouts, which is awesome because, yes, we're not forcing them in, but these are females that wanted to be part of the sport. Trust me, there's a lot of females that I've, seen come to match and go, this is disgusting. I can't do this. They're not going to be the ones, you're going to push towards the sport. But then in the past, you see girls in the stands and be like, oh my God, I want to learn that. I want to do that. That's so cool. And there wasn't that opportunity wasn't there. And this is very recent of schools having full female teams.
Yeah.
I want to say last 4 or 5 years,
Probably.
something like that. This happening and actually having a state championship. So you could, this female can stand there on the podium,
Right.
show off her school with pride, and hold that, state championship.
I mean, I think I definitely agree with you guys. I think it's about equal opportunity, and the danger with equal opportunity is because people sometimes I guess make it obtuse and people want instead equal outcomes, and equal outcomes is just impossible. It can never be 50-50.
No.
Because if you make it 50-50, that is when you are forcing people to become like, oh, you have to go to wrestling.
Yeah.
You can't go to tennis anymore because we need 50-50 wrestling, male and female. Yeah.
And we're going to push
And I think that I'm in agreement with you guys. It's like that the equal opportunity, but equal outcomes is it's impossible to have equal outcomes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You gotta,
I guess
you gotta cultivate a facility of passion.
Yes, no matter what.
I think this is a good way to end the podcast. Well, I want to thank you guys, Jeff and Ibby. Thank you for taking the time and hanging out with me. And even though it was like an hour late,
It's always a pleasure.
It's always a good time.
yeah. So thank you guys, and that concludes our podcast. I think we didn't step on the landmine. I think that was pretty.
I think we came close.
we came close a few times, but I think we did all right. I think we survived.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys. That's a Good Hombres Podcast. Thank you for checking us out. Catch you guys later. Peace.
Hey.